Is there someone who can help me read it? Genesis chapter 15 verses 7, 17 and 18.
And it came to pass that when the sun went down, and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace, and a burning a lamp that is passed between those pieces.
Wonderful. Just wait there. Now, a covenant is made between two people. Now we want to see how God has made a covenant, or He is a part of the covenant with Abraham. Now I believe they used to take an animal, they cut it in half, they take an animal, cut it in half, they put one half on the other side, one half on this side, and they walk between those two pieces. That means there is blood on the floor. That means you are walking between these two pieces, you are making a covenant. And God made a covenant with Abraham. Let us read verse 17 once again.
And it came to pass.
And it came to pass
that
yes, go ahead.
When the sun went down, and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace.
Behold, a smoking furnace.
And a burning lamp.
And a burning lamp.
That passed between those pieces.
Passed between those pieces. God Himself has made a covenant with Abraham. And continue, please.
In the same day, the Lord made a covenant with Abraham.
The Lord made a covenant with Abraham,
saying, Unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river to Euphrates.
Thank you. Let us go ahead. The covenant with God gave Israel access to the promised land. That means if there is a promised land and you need to have access into that land, and that is a promise. Shall we read from Hebrews chapter 9 verse 22? Hebrews chapter 9 verse 22.
And almost all things are by the law, purged with blood, and without shedding of the blood is no remission.
Thank you. That means without shedding of blood, there is no remission for sin. There is no remission for sin. Remission means there is no washing away of sin. Now the Son of God, He offered Himself as a substitute. If we read the last sentence, that we may receive the promised eternal inheritance. Now we'll go ahead with the next lesson. Diverse kinds of sacrifices. Now if we go back into history, we know of the different kinds of sacrifices the children of Israel made. And what were the different types of, or all the sacrifices, we can place them in 5 different kinds, or we can categorize them into 5 groups. The first one is called as the Holocaust offering, or what we call as the burnt offering. Now Holocaust offering, it requires a whole animal, a complete animal, to be sacrificed as it is. So they place the animal on the altar and it is consumed by fire. The next type of offering is called as the grain offering. The grain offering is a gift of gratitude. Now when you are happy, now most of us, we have paddy fields, and I'm sure all of you here, you know what is a field. Now when we go to a field, we harvest those, and the grains that you get, the first grains that you get, what will you do? You will give it in the church. So they used to give the offering as grain offering. So first one is the burnt offering, second one is the grain offering, and the next type of offering is called as peace offering. Now what is the meaning of peace or fellowship offering? Now this is usually like maybe let us say it's a communal meal. We have a fellowship meal together, and during that meal what we do is we forgive those who commit a sin against us. That means someone has sinned against you, someone has sinned against you, you will take their forgiveness, or you will forgive them, whatever the relation may be. Sometimes we have some wars amongst our children. I have 3 girls, so girls understand this a lot better. What do girls do? They have a lot of fights. It's not because of big things, small things. I kept my clip here. What is the price of a clip? Maybe 10 rupees or 15 rupees. For that clip, I kept my clip here. Somebody took it. You used it without my permission. And because of that, this day, from today till evening, no talking. Girls, you do that, right? No talking. That means if you are angry with someone, you don't talk. And that is when this offering comes into action. That is, peace offering is when you forgive others. So what happens now? The point comes, you took my clip, which I kept here, used it without permission, so I'm not going to talk to you. Who should say sorry? Subhash. Who should say sorry? Is it the one who kept the clip or took the clip? Now we all will say the one who took the clip, isn't it? The one who took the clip should say sorry. That means the one who sinned should say sorry first. Did you understand now? The one who sinned should say sorry first. So who should die if we talk about sin? The one who committed a mistake, the one who committed a sin should die. But in the Bible, it is different. It is not the one who has committed sin that is dying. It is the one who has created you, has died for us. That is a great sacrifice. The peace sacrifice or peace offering. Next one is sin or purification offering. Now, if you understand the previous example, we will now come to this. Now, we have committed a sin, and if you see in the picture, you can see that a person, now this used to be done. A person who has committed a sin will go place his hands over the lamb or the goat or whatever is the sin offering. Usually they take a goat or a ram and they put their hands on it, and that means I have committed a mistake and I will put my hands on the lamb or the goat. My sin is transferred to this goat. Did you understand now? It's like a little bit of electronics. I'm a magnet. I sit next to an iron rod or rub against one iron rod. That also becomes a magnet. That means my sin is transferred onto an animal, and this offering is called as the sin offering or purification offering. We will understand this as we go ahead. The 5th type of offering is called as guilt or reparation offering. That is, I have committed sin. See, I want you to understand the 4 stages, the 5 stages. I have committed a mistake, and till I feel I am guilty, I will not ask forgiveness. Now, most of us, when we sin, or when let us go back to that clip example. Now, the one who has taken it will not feel guilty. Then there is no sin there. The one who has taken it does not feel guilty. But if the one who has felt that guilt, that shame, yes, I have committed this mistake, when I say or when I feel that I have committed a mistake, then I feel guilty. Now, this offering is when a person is guilty of something, then they need to do this offering. Now, if we understand the title of today's lesson, what is that? Jesus, the perfect sacrifice. But here we have a modification of that same title. Jesus, perfect sacrifice. I want you to look at the word Jesus. Now, English is very, very specific to some things. You see the word Jesus, after the word Jesus, there is a small, what is that called as? Apostrophe. What does that mean? Now when we use as, if I use it on my name, let us say maybe I'll use it on Sumant. Now if this microphone belongs to Sumant and I have to use in English, I will call that as Sumant's microphone. So that is when I will use that apostrophe, Sumant's. So I will use it before S. Since there is S already at the end, they won't add another S. They will simply put this apostrophe. Now here we need to understand the perfect sacrifice. Maybe I'll put it this way: the perfect sacrifice of Jesus Christ. That is what it talks about. Can I ask somebody to read from Hebrews chapter 7 verse 27?
Who needeth not daily, as those high priests, to offer the sacrifices.
Yes, to offer sacrifice like how those high priests used to offer. That means you and I are in that same place. We are in that same place. Now, why is sacrifice needed? That was what we learned. Now, today the next lesson is Jesus' perfect sacrifice. How do you and I try to understand? Now, if you go back into history, the high priest used to offer sacrifices every time. Why? If we just continue that verse.
First for his own sin.
First for his own sins.
And then for his people's.
Then for his people's. That means a priest himself is a sinner. Priest will offer a sacrifice first for himself and then for his people. Go ahead.
For this he did once, when he offered up himself.
Now Jesus Christ has offered his sacrifice. Now some theology students, somebody may ask you, why, see, you follow the Sabbath on the 7th day, that is Saturday. Somebody will ask you, why do you follow the Sabbath? Then you will say, it is in the Old Testament. It is in the Old Testament. Then they will say, if it is in the Old Testament, then why don't you offer sacrifices now? The answer is in this. The answer is in this verse. If people are offering sacrifices, we need to offer it again and again, because even the priest who is offering it, but when Jesus Christ has offered himself, we don't offer any more sacrifices, because Jesus Christ is the perfect sacrifice. He has died once, and that is what it is. That is done. Sin has been washed, but you and I, we need to do or continue those sacrifices because we are sinning again and again. Can you read Hebrews chapter 10 verse 10?
By the which we are thus sanctified through the offering of the body of Jesus Christ once for all.
Thank you. Once for all we have been sanctified. Now Jesus has given us the first sacrifice, or the first thing we need to understand is Jesus' sacrifice is perfectly effective and never to be surpassed. And these sacrifices of the priests, the Levitical priests, they have to be repeated because they are sinners and the person who is offering is also a sinner. And the second is all kinds of sacrifices of the Old Testament have been fulfilled. They have been fulfilled at the cross. They have been fulfilled at the cross. Now, am I clear on this? Why do they offer sacrifice? Why do they not offer sacrifices now? Because Jesus Christ has made a perfect sacrifice. Why did the priest have to offer every time? Because the priest was a sinner, and also the sinner continues to do it. So we need to continually make our own sacrifices. The cross and the cost of forgiveness. The cross and the cost of forgiveness. Now we all remember the sanctuary is a symbol of God's government. Sanctuary is a symbol of God's government, and he is the ruler and the judge of his people, the ruler and judge of his people, and he is vindicating the innocent and condemning the guilty. Now we need to understand two important positions of God. First one is, he is vindicating, or he is correcting, or he is bringing the innocent back to him, and the guilty he is condemning. So he is more of two important components. He is more of a judge in one place, and the other place he is a mediator. I hope you are trying to understand. Now judge is seated on the main seat there, and there is you and I, we are in that boon. What are we doing? We are sinners, but there is our mediator, the lawyer, who is taking us, or he is talking on our behalf. Now sacrifices in the Israelite sanctuary and animals as sacrifice on his behalf. Now therefore the blood of this animal, now if you remember, if you have gone through the Old Testament, the altar has horns on four corners. Theology students, you'll know that. The altar has four horns on the four corners of the altar. Now what does the priest do? He kills an animal, he takes that blood and applies it on all those horns. And then he will, two things remember. One is he will apply blood on those horns, and then he will take the blood into the veil. You imagine your curtain here. Imagine your curtain here. The priest, he applies blood on the four corners of the altar, on the four horns of the altar, and he will take this blood into the temple, and in the temple on the veil, maybe we can call it like a curtain, the veil which separates the holy place and the most holy place, on that the blood is sprinkled. Why does the priest have to do this? Why does the priest have to do this? The cross and the cost of forgiveness tells us that repentant sinners brought sacrifices to the sanctuary. These are which cleansed them from their sin, but transferred the sin to the sanctuary, to God himself. I want all of us to understand the altar and the veil. These are parts of the sanctuary. Now these are parts of the sanctuary. Now most of us, many of us, or in fact all of us, almost all of us, what we do? When we go to the main stage, we deem it as very holy. When you go on stage, we think it is very holy. But when we sit in the benches, are we still that holy? If you don't believe me, you put your hand under the benches inside and you see many of them have put chewing gum, bubble gum. How many of you have not done this? Don't put your hands up. No, don't put your hands up. You open your hymn books and see how many people have written on those hymn books. But what we learn here is every component, every part of the church is holy, and we need to safeguard it. Whatever, the lights or the fans, everything which is in the sanctuary is holy. And what we do is, we simply say only this part is holy, the other part is unholy. Now, our sin has been transferred to the sanctuary, and in the sanctuary to God himself. Now, at the end of each year, on the Day of Atonement, what people do is they put their sin on an animal, and the animal is called as a scapegoat. And you know, if you go into the Old Testament, very, very interesting. Some animals they kill, but some animals they put their sin on it and chase it into the wilderness. They will not kill it. They will chase it into the wilderness. So it will go there, and what will happen is it may die of hunger or of thirst, or a wild animal may eat it. So what this represents is that scapegoat represents Satan. We transfer our sins. Earlier we transferred onto Jesus Christ, but here this talks about we transfer the sin, but this sin we transfer it and chase it out of the camp. The cross and the cost of forgiveness. Sin was symbolically transferred, but We need to understand God does one thing. He shows mercy, but He also is just. Justice also. Judgment and the character of God. Now, in this topic or in this thought, we need to understand. I told you 2 points. One is God is merciful and He is a judge as well. That means both are in the same person. Both are in the same person. At one time, somebody comes to you for forgiveness. He asks you for forgiveness. What will you do? You are the judge. Isn't it? You are the judge. What will you do? Suppose, let us say some GM Annas, GM Akkas. What do? One student has gone out of the hostel without permission. Now you are in place of that judge. Now what will you do? You will say, you go out. You went out without permission. You need to take punishment. And GM Akka will give punishment. Take 10 sit-ups. Now you put yourself in that same place. What do you expect? Now that same GM Akka or GM Anna has gone out without permission and they come to the dean. Now the dean is the judge. And what does the GM Akka expect? Oh, I made that fellow or that girl to take 10 sit-ups. Now the dean also should give me 10 sit-ups. So what will she do? She will go to the dean and say, ma'am, I gave that girl 10 sit-ups. Now you also give me 10 sit-ups. I will do it. No. When it comes to you and I, when you put yourself in that place, now you will not ask for judgment, but you will ask for mercy. Ma'am, please forgive me. I have committed a mistake. See, God is in 2 places. One is He is merciful, but He is also the judge. And therefore, that is when you and I need to ask for forgiveness. We will go ahead up to judgment and the character of God. There is a reading that I will read from E.G. White's writings, if it's on judgment and the character of God. Go ahead, please. Yes, this is the one. We will all read it together. I'll read it, but I want all of you to follow this. Man cannot meet these charges himself, that is, the charges of sin. In his sin-stained garments, confessing his guilt, he stands before God. But Jesus, our advocate, presents an effectual plea means request, in behalf of all who by repentance and faith have committed the keeping of their souls to Him. He pleads their cause and vanquishes their accuser by the mighty arguments of the Calvary. His perfect obedience to God's law, even unto the death of the cross, has given Him all power in heaven and in earth, and He claims of His Father mercy and reconciliation for guilt of man. That is our guilt. But while we should realize that our sinful condition, we are to rely upon Christ as our righteousness, our sanctification, and our redemption. We cannot answer the charges of Satan against us. Christ alone can make an effectual plea or request. Effectual means an effective request on our behalf. He is able to silence the accuser with arguments found upon our merits, founded not upon our merits, but on His. A beautiful thought that comes to us from Testimonies for the Church. When somebody accuses you, now you imagine your hostel scene again. The dean is standing there. There is this fellow with a problem, and the GM Akka again, GM Anna again. Sir or ma'am, this fellow or this girl has done this. Then the dean will say, hey, did you do this? No, sir, I did not do it. But what will the GM do? She has done it. Yes, she has done it. I have seen. So she is like an advocate trying to give you or give an excuse. Satan is doing the same thing. He's putting us into sin, not only putting us into sin, but he's also adding more. I saw this. So Satan is accusing us. He's the